So I'm not a politician. So when I was asked to give this keynote speech, it says, I need some data. So we did the survey. So I have some data to work with. Because I'm not a politician, I don't think I could be one. And I have to say, in recent years, I have really increased my respect for people that are spending their lives on bringing us together, as I see how difficult that actually is to do that every day relative to a business person. Now, our life has not gotten any easier recently, but I'm really happy with the job I have today. I have to say, John, you know, a lot of respect for what you and your colleagues have been doing. Today, the theme is trust and the German-American relationship. Why is trust important? And I'm going to talk about that, very important, because the theme I'm going to run today is strength without trust is actually only brute force. And it's very, very important for our history that we, many times in the past century, have forgotten that when you have a lot of power, be it economic or military, if you don't have the trust of your neighbors, you can easily see to become a threat rather than something good for the world. And I think we've learned that a few years ago also from how politics and the United States have worked. So thank you, Sigmar, Clark, and John, for your kind introduction. And I first would like to welcome you on behalf of our more than 150,000 employees worldwide. 50,000, by the way, of those work both in the United States and in the US. Very quickly, by the way, I think the economic contribution from the US will start to echo that of Germany. In about 5 years, I expect we'll make as much profit in the United States as we do in Germany. Despite occasional setbacks, we are really, really long America and have been throughout our history. Some of you may not know, in 1904, Allianz already came to the United States 14 years after its foundation, and we contributed significantly to paying for the earthquake and the fires in San Francisco. And by the way, we were the first insurer after 9/11 to pick up the tab for rebuilding, helping to rebuild Lower Manhattan, and we are very proud of that. Very, very proud of that. So I'd like to welcome you back to the Allianz Forum. Thank you. Nicely situated between having the view of two powerful symbols of our partnership in this conference, the Brandenburg Gate and the US Embassy. And this year's conference recognizes 70 years of Atlantic Brücke, as we've seen before, and the American Council on Germany. I'm going to talk about Brücke again, because it's very important to build bridges and maintain them. In Germany, I think we forgot the last 20 years a little bit to maintain our bridges. We were doling out money more for consumption than investment. But once you have a bridge, you actually need to walk over it and use it. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit. Now, as we've heard, when these institutions were born in 1952, the world just has emerged from World War II, and we wanted to never have happen it again. And America made this amazing commitment to Germany, and we should never forget that as Germans, in my opinion. And we should be mindful that we now, as we find in times of crisis, we are remembering back our German friendship. Now, institutions like Atlantic Brücke and American Council on Germany have been actively supporting the build of democracy, peace, and cultural understanding. To a large extent, independent institutions at these, and it's very important, they are independent institutions, they are not government-sponsored, they are government-supported but not sponsored, have made a lot of the dialogue possible and make sure that in these times we keep the dialogue, even if occasionally the official channels do not work as well as we've experienced a few years ago. So that's why I would like to congratulate you for all the things you have been doing, all the people that have made these things happening, even if the official doors occasionally were a bit more closed. Now, holding together in times of crisis, we will hear great speakers, we will have cool politicians and bureaucrats. By the way, my daughter says cool and politician in one sentence that I'm not sure that's going to work. But I think it's still we have some pretty cool speakers here, and we have a lot to think about what is going to happen. I have to say, the first time since I became CEO, I really am wrestling with just the intellectual concept of how do we deal with all the dimensions of insecurity, right? We've experienced enormous transformation in business. Think about digitalization, what it's doing. But we've been relying on globalization to continue, and we said we'll get to good outcomes. You talked, John, about the increasing realization that if countries get richer, they don't want to become like us. China is a case in point, but it's not just China. Many other countries are not, with more wealth, coming to the conclusion that democracy is the best way to run our countries. So we have to think about what that means for us. And again, with now war breaking out in Europe again, what does that mean for us? How do we behave? And it's not that we didn't have any sign of warning. I want to come back to what we've just heard before. In 2014, I was just announced CEO, Russia invaded Crimea. And we asked, and luckily we decided to stop investments in Russia, but everybody else was just going on. It's like nothing had happened. We had an invasion, like Hitler went into Sudetendeutschland. We didn't do anything. How can that be? And nobody did anything. So we have to rethink a lot of things. We need new frameworks, not just new ideas in terms of how to deal with a world that is going to be a lot more uncertain, if not full of war. Now I would like to shed some light on the very specific notion of our transatlantic relationship, the very foundation of it. Trust. It's really interesting to that end that we conducted a study with Edelman, what we consider to be the experts on trust. We've asked more than 4,000 respondents from the US and Germany, samples of general population in terms of age, gender, location, and education. The results confirm 3 key points, which I would like to get to for the upcoming discussions over the next 2 days. The first one is, and that's very reassuring, we're all very proud of a strong partnership between the United States of America and Germany. The trust, as we've heard before, is very high. The vast majority of people in both countries believe and confirm that our partnership is now needed more than ever in our history and plays a crucial role for world stability. And that is something to really, really, really think about. Second, democracy and peaceful partnership are not given for all times. We always assume, we will always win. After, the Iron Curtain fell, after we had the unification, we said, this is done. We're done with autocracies. They're going to go down by themselves, right? Because we managed to achieve that. It's not true. They're all coming back. Actually, democracy is on the retreat everywhere, everywhere. And I'll get to why that is, in my personal opinion, as a business leader and citizen in a second. It is because democracies are appreciated by people because they get to better outcomes. It's not the fact that I can vote or not vote that makes me a happy citizen. That's important too, as an intellectual. It is because democracies are supposed to deliver better outcomes for our people. That we have trained systems that actually work, that we have access to high quality education and our children can have a better life than we can. And it is the fact that they are fair, that the rule of law applies. Now, if you think about that, if you ask, and I have a lot of friends, for example, in China I went to school with, they say, as a young woman with a short skirt, do you feel safer walking the streets of Chicago at night or of Shanghai? If you think about access to proper health care, do you feel better in Germany than you feel in whatever place? So it's outcomes that we need to affect and that make the trust. And I'm talking a little bit about that later. So democracy in of itself is only appreciated if it delivers better outcomes, not as a rule of that. You find that shocking by a CEO to say. I'm not saying I prefer autocracies. I'm just saying we need to make sure that the benefits of democracy, of freedom, other things, really, really are being acknowledged by our citizens. So our partnership in democracy must therefore be defended and sustained, especially in times of crisis like today. Germans and Americans have, by the way, some differing views on how to best do so. While Americans see their country as a global leader with very strong influence and dominance, Germany and Germans think we are one of several countries with somewhat of a moderate influence, heavily relying on international partnership to address the issues, and the United States plays an important role in that. Now, third, there's room for improvement and alignment in our partnership. So, as you can expect from somebody with my role, I'm also going to talk about the things we need to do better. Although both countries are largely aligned on values and priorities, economic growth and climate change should be addressed more rigorously to sustain each other's respect and openness. By the way, I strongly believe that public-private partnerships can help to address the challenges of our time. Our public budgets are running out of money. Now, it's hard to believe that because we've been printing money, governments have been printing money like at no point in our history. It's quite something, and everybody thought that's not a problem because inflation had disappeared, right? So why not keep on printing money and just helicopters distribute them to our people? We had that in Germany. We're closing down the economy, don't worry about it, your check will arrive anyway. You don't need to work, the money will arrive. Well, the reckoning has come. And if you know anything about financials and you have participated in the financial markets on last Friday, and I've seen all the panic reactions, particularly in the governments of Southern Europe's after the spreads have widened again, we're in for some interesting rides on the financial markets over the next couple of months and years because the market forces are coming back. And in this country, we'll very quickly find out that we would love to spend more, but the pockets are going to be empty very soon. Don't believe that? Watch it. So therefore, we need stronger collaboration between the public and the private sector. And registering lobbyists as the answer may be one thing to do, but collaboration on working through what is, as Sigmar said, the industrial model of Germany going forward and who's going to pay all these bills that we have been issuing will be really interesting. We are offering our help. We have been, by the way, doing this on many things, including climate change, for many, many years. 7 years ago, by the way, we proposed the first LNG terminal to be built in Germany. We didn't even get an appointment with the government. We didn't even get an appointment. Now, let me share my view on some of these points in more detail, and I've referred to the symbolic nature of this place as we are located between the Brandenburger Gate, Brandenburger Tor, and the American Embassy. Now, again, I'm a business leader. I'm not a politician, so I'm less polished, and I also don't always mince every word, so forgive me if I'm sort of pressing the wrong button every now and then. My career and my education was shaped both in Germany and to a very large extent by the United States, actually by New York City, because many people remind me New York City is not the United States, so I just want to clarify that. But I can tell you, I would have never been able to get to where I am today without all the love and the devotion of my American teachers and the families I stayed with, who I want to say thank you to today. Now, I remain bullish on the Alliance, therefore, on its potential, not because I was educated there, because I've seen the power myself, even what it can do for Allianz with all the problems that we've experienced. And again, let me say that it was our problems, not the American problems. Now, after the Second World War, Germany and the German economy, let's remind ourselves, were really largely rebuilt by the United States, not by France, who were afraid of us and wanted us down, or, you know, the United Kingdom, who took our old factories and moved them, thankfully, to the United Kingdom. It was the United States that brought us back, and we should never forget that. Despite all this history, by the way, the United States never treated Germany as a younger sister, but a partner at eyesight, and that's also very, very important. We should never really complain. When we're not being listened to, we should think about, as Germans, what do we have to do that people listen to us? And I'll also get to that in a second. However, again, we cannot take our relationship for granted, and we must ensure that we nurture its foundations every day. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today and why we're supporting the Atlantic Brücke again, not just the ECG. But I want to go back to this point around getting stronger is not good enough if it's not coming with trust. Again, it's only brute force, and let me talk to it. Politically, empowering democracy and peace, culturally, mutually nurturing society, that's great, and economically, and that's what Germany has been focusing on, facilitating growth on both sides of the societies. The Germans are the biggest investors in the United States in terms of FDI. It's 10 times the FDI of China that the Germans are delivering to the United States. And we always have to remind local communities of that. By the way, we're bringing a lot more jobs and a lot more technology. We're not taking technology, we're actually bringing technology, also a small reminder. So it goes beyond the two nations. Affiliates also benefit from the strong ties. Often when people want to understand how Germany has done it with the United States, they come and ask and says, how do we learn from that? So, first takeaway, our partnership is joint. We are both fighting for democracy globally and jointly. But we have to understand it only works if it's good for our people. And the survey didn't cover a very important question. How is our partnership benefiting our citizens, practically every day? Now, the second takeaway reads that our partnerships must constantly be renewed. And as I said, we are fighting for democracy, but we are different in nations. As democratic societies, we believe in human freedom and self-determination. Again, a lot of people believe that's the real ideal. No, it is not. It's great and it's needed, and it's required, but it's not sufficient. We need better outcomes. While the United States takes the clear lead in supporting the military defenses of Ukraine, Germany, together with Europe, focuses on economic sanctions. It is doing its part that Russia understands that we will not accept what they have been doing. These economic sanctions come at an extremely high price for the German economy and ultimately the German people. But we have shown that this is a price that our people, at least so far, are willing to pay, and we have shown our ability to evolve our views. I would have never thought that we could change the government's view on the Bundeswehr. You know, I've served, and I'm proud to have served in a NATO organization for more than 2 years, and I was really shocked that especially the CDU actually managed the downfall of our forces. Now we are back, everybody agrees to that. And if you want to have a successful democracy, sorry for me saying that, you need to be able to defend it. And it's about time we recognize that. On the humanitarian side, Germany and its neighbors to the east have contributed significantly, also on the front line of migration, managing the displacement of people as a result of the invasion. By the way, one of the things I'm super proud of for our employees, many Germans, Czech and others, have gone to our Romanian subsidiary and have been taking people from Ukraine, treating them there and bringing them to Germany. We have in our family many houses that have been vacated to bring a space for people that need help. This is what the Germans are really great at. We are there when it's really needed, and we're not just talking about it on having money being doled out. We do it on the ground, and that's really great. Now, this complementarity of the Germans and the US approach is seen one of the drivers of why 6 out of 10 Germans and Americans see each other's partnership as equal in terms of strengths, indicating what we can accomplish together. Therefore, our complementary and joint response in the invasion has increased trust on both sides, which is really interesting, again, according to 7 out of 10 Germans and Americans, respectively. So besides defending democracy abroad is also not to forget strengthen democracy at home. Extreme politicians, both in Germany, by the way, also in Germany, are aggressively exploiting the uncertainties brought about by economic inequalities and technological change to destabilize our political core. We talk about it all the time. Again, we don't do very little to address it. They use instruments of simplistic populism to gain fake trust. By the way, I spent a lot of time in Italy. We need to be aware that the elections next year in Italy are going to be super important for us Europeans, but also for US-European relationships, because Mr. Putin is spending hundreds of millions to funnel money into the extremists in Italy in order to make sure that they go against migration, and the migration issue by using fake media and getting to the people. You see the power of the radicals on the right and left growing very significantly. But we have also evidence that in the United States, with the US Capitol storming in the January of 2021, something I would have never thought possible ever. And we had a little bit of an attempt like that too. Remember August 2020 here at the Reichstag, and people were just not ready. They were not ready. Again, we need to be ready more in terms of defending of what we do. And therefore, we need to address, in times of rising economic inequalities and cultural insecurities, defending democracy is as important as building it. So, how do we do that? It goes back to the theme of the survey. It is about earning the trust of the people and understanding what creates trust. So we need to fertilize the ground and make sure we keep not just the moral high ground, but practical things and going forward. Now, the only reason why I'm mentioning this at this point, because often people feel, okay, great, let's move on because now governments are in, they have to do that. The reality is we all have a great role to do that. The American Council of Germany, the Untitled, but also businesses are doing a great thing. If you read the Edelman reports, you know who the highest ranking source of trust is for human beings that are in work? You know? It's their employer. People do not trust the media, it's the lowest ranking. They do not trust their governments. It's okay, but not great. They actually trust their employer. So we as businesses and business leaders have a huge role to play to build trust by our people in our societies, not in our companies alone. I'll give you a practical example of that. With Edelman, and we as Allianz thought very hard. The moment the invasion happened, we made a decision to exit and sell the majority in our business before almost anybody else did it. That was an instinct. If you look at the data, you will find out that not just our people, society has massively supported our decision. Companies exiting or ceasing business in Russia and simultaneously caring for employees experienced a 58 increase in their trust barometer. Our peoples have written to me thousands of emails and letters and saying this was the right thing to do before anybody else did. It was the first time, by the way, in my career. So when we made the decision, I made the decision, I was very lonely. I felt much better when the data came out because it was an expensive decision. We are used to, let me do something, let me get washed, but don't put the water on, right? So dry shampoo is something that we'd like to use. Dry shampoo doesn't work anymore, ladies and gentlemen. You have to take action and you have to bear the cost. So it is very important that we think about these things every day. What creates trust? And that was just an example. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on lots of other political points. I want to talk about one thing that John has mentioned is very dear to my heart, climate change. So I come from the city of Cologne, where we have some of the biggest brown coal exploitation grounds in Germany and had them for a long time. So I could see and smell and feel it in my breath what it means when you have coal production. And the reason, and we all know that, why we had to increase coal production and increase CO2 emissions, because we made, in hindsight, everybody's quickly, a very stupid decision to exit nuclear. By the way, exactly at the wrong point in time. Now, some people working in brown coal, when I decided in 2015, again, the personal decision, we will not insure coal power plants again, were not very happy. They showed in front of my house, and I had some color on the walls of my house. And that's a price you have to pay. And again, we would like democracy to really be pleasant. Not having to take conferences, not to be assaulted by people. It doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. If you take a decision that's unpopular, it has to be taken, and you have to think about the consequences and not succumb just because you're showing up a little less popular on the daily social media index. And that's very important. That's the only difference we have. While Americans see the development of jobs and growth as the #1 priority going forward, the Germans see addressing climate change as the most important topic. So we need to reconcile the two. I'm personally a paranoid optimist, as many people that left Germany and immigrated in another country, at least for a while. That means I think we can reconcile the two. There's huge opportunities. One of the practical proposals I have, in order to get to net zero, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of technologies that have not really been developed properly, but we need in order to get to net zero. Between the United States and America, we should push them a lot harder. And trust me, it's going to be a great economic opportunity too. It's not just going to be great for the climate and the planet. Now, because we are very much ahead in time, let me jump over a lot of the interesting details, and let me just share a few items. I would like to come to something that I'm really serious about. That is the fact of how do we deal with fake information that undermines democracy. Why do I say that today? Because we have a very important role to play, everybody, in order to serve as benchmarks when people ask, is this really true? So everybody has to do something. But there's another thing that I checked. when, as the CEO of Allianz, I lie to my shareholders, and it's proven, I'm out of a job. It's not true for politics anymore. So I think we need to think about it, and I'm serious, even in terms of law. If people do lie to their citizens, why can't they be elected for public office? That's the one message I want to send to you. Maybe you think about that very carefully. Very, very carefully. Now, we need to have certain roles, right? So I didn't mean it that way or something, but if you consciously have been lying to your people and you know that, and you're spreading misinformation, how can you be allowed to be in public office? So that's my last message on what came out of the trust pyramid. You can't trust people that you know have the ability to lie to you and get away with that time and time again. I can't in my job. So back to the data, and John stole the thunder already. That's my last comment. So my daughter is in Princeton at the moment in the United States studying biochemistry. She's, by the way, working on a project to replace lithium in our batteries. So given the fact that you have two places in the world, China and Congo, where you have lithium and large quantities, a bit in Canada and others, replacing it is very important. So again, it shows the opportunity of things. And she said, Dad, the data is true. We are more optimistic about the future of the US and German relationships the day we are in charge. And you are not anymore. So with that, I thought I conclude there's many other things. Let's put the young guys in charge because I feel I'm not running out of gas, but it's their future and they should have a voice in how it looks like. Thank you very much.